Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki. This is my podcast where we talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today, it's a good one. It's episode 39, where we are going to be talking Saturday Night and The Apprentice. It's been a very New York minute for me this week. I have watched 3 movies that are set in New York. I know I mentioned last week that I would be watching, Saturday Night? Oh, We Live in Time. I said last week that I was going to be watching Saturday Night and We Live in Time. Turns out in Canada, that doesn't come out till next week or this week when you're watching it, the 18th of October. So I think that will be next week's episode because Anora is also apparently not coming out on the date that they've advertised forever. You know, we're going to start with the news. Of course, we got some casting. We got some insider, inside baseball knowledge kind of about Joker and why it was such a disaster in the making of it. We finally have some resolution on our casting news, as I mentioned. Yeah, I'm not really going to dilly-dally today. I think we're going to get right into it. But of course, let me just say to all my fellow Canadians, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have stuffed your face with pumpkin pie, apple pie, turkey, ham, whatever. Let's get down to some real shit, okay? We got some movies to talk about today. We got some news to talk about today. I'm in a good mood. I almost did not see The Apprentice because I got in there. I saw it at 9:45 on a Thursday night. Me, a couple in front of me, and then a couple in the back corner behind me. 5 minutes in, I randomly turned around and the couple behind me was full on getting freaky. And I was like, oh my God. Do I go and tell the theater employees? But it's just, there's 5 of us in here. They're going to know if I leave and then an employee comes in. I just moved up to the front of the theater because all 5 of us booked seats kind of in the back 3 rows. Sometimes, you can't control the actions of others, specifically their freaky actions. But anyways, I'm glad I saw The Apprentice. I have tons to say about it. As I say every week, there's timestamps below. If you want to just hear the news and what else I watched because you want to not know anything about either of these movies going into it, that's absolutely fine. Or if you want to just listen to the non-spoiler sections and kind of get a general feel and what these movies are really about and what they're trying to do, that's fine too. I make sure it's very non-spoilery. But yeah, let's get into the news before we do a double feature. All right, first piece of news. There's tons of DC studios rumbling. Rob Liefeld, who, if you don't know, a great comic writer, very involved in Deadpool, a creator of Deadpool, I think so. He tweeted this week, I am hearing really great things about James Gunn's Superman. I could not be more psyched. Superman is my favorite superhero of all space and time. And the top reply was, hear that about Shazam 2, Blue Beetle, The Flash, Birds of Prey. And we all know how that went. So what they're trying to say is we heard similar things about other movies. He said, I heard things, but terrible things about most of those, and I saw none of them. Also, lots of rumblings surrounding Superman right now because someone threaded or tweeted James Gunn saying, if there's no reshoots, does that mean we're going to maybe get a teaser, kinda? And he just put the thinking emoji. So I'm thinking we are getting a trailer before New Year's, to be honest. I mean, what maybe Thanksgiving weekend in the States, something like that. But yeah, it's looking like there's lots of insider knowledge that the Superman movie is great. A lot of people looking forward to it. I will take it with a grain of salt though, because I heard people like Stephen King and tons of Hollywood people saying, oh, The Flash is one of the best movies we've ever seen. It's one of the best superhero movies since The Dark Knight. I really don't believe any of it. Where my belief and my confidence comes from with this movie is James Gunn and his creative vision. I have not watched a project of his yet that I did not like. So I'm still pumped for Superman. But speaking of DC, but not DC Studios, Variety this week did a kind of scoop article. The title was Inside the Joker Folie debacle. Todd Phillips wanted nothing to do with DC on the $200 million misfire. So on September 30th, Lady Gaga blew kisses to fans outside the TCL Chinese Theater out of the premiere of Joker Folie while Joaquin Phoenix dropped his typical solemn facade and flashed a few smiles on the red carpet. Meanwhile, there were some notable no-shows, namely DC studio toppers James Gunn and Peter Safran. Insiders say the duo's glaring absence for a film that is based on one of the biggest draws in the DC canon underscores a dysfunctional dynamic that played out behind the scenes on the ill-fated Warner Brothers musical. Not a musical. You can't say that, Variety. Ask the people who made it. It's not a musical. Todd Phillips, quote, wanted nothing to do with DC during the making of the film, says one agent familiar with the director's unique carve-out, which allowed him to bypass any oversight from the brand's gatekeepers, although Gunn has publicly supported the film on social media. Phillips has distanced himself from DC. As the animated title card sequence unspooled inside the iconic Hollywood cinema in the opening minutes, it became apparent that Phillips had just given DC the middle finger. There was no DC Studios logo. Other battles of will between Phillips and Warner's ensued. Phillips refused to screen test Joker 2, so its premiere in Venice marked the first time an audience saw it. The critics rejected it, and the films tallied a disastrous 33% on Rotten Tomatoes, well before earning a D cinema score. To put that grade into context, the much reveled Madam Web landed a C+ earlier this year. Very interesting. I think it's extremely apparent when you're watching Joker Folie, and I mentioned it in my review last week that there was definitely, I think I mentioned it last week, or that was Megalopolis, I can't tell. There's definitely no studio notes in there, and it's very much just a one-mind film. And at the same time, this is a bit of a conspiracy, and I feel even goofy for saying this, but I was scrolling TikTok this week, and one of those, drama lip reader body language experts, quote unquote experts, had a video of Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga during the Venice Film Festival round of applause. They do the 20-minute standing ovation for every movie or whatever. Horizon, An American Saga, whatever, got 13 minutes or whatever. All that BS, that self-patting on the back. So this body language expert put captions on and did the spoke what was Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga were saying, and Joaquin Phoenix apparently said to Lady Gaga, "It's terrible, it's awful," and she's like, "What? No, it was great." He said, "No, it's unbearable. The ending was awful." And Lady Gaga says, "Oh, don't be like that," or something. And then Joaquin Phoenix instantly turns around to Todd Phillips and says, "Todd, great film." And I'm gonna sound like a TMZ gossip lunatic right now, but the reason I believe that is almost every interview I've watched with Joaquin Phoenix, and he's not a very passionate guy in general, to be honest, and I think he's very socially awkward, and I don't want to hate on him for that, but you can tell with this movie that he's not very proud of it in my eyes. It seems like he doesn't really care about the movie, and there has been a couple interviews that I've watched with him and Lady Gaga where he's not speaking that fondly about the movie and kind of talks about it in a very passive-aggressive negative tone. So I don't know, I kind of buy into this idea that Todd Phillips was completely ignoring the studio, took no notes, and it was very much just make it up on the day, kind of a psycho auteur or whatever. But I also think Todd Phillips is a very incapable filmmaker, and I think Joaquin Phoenix, apparently they changed the ending a bunch of times, or they had rewritten the ending from I reviewed it last week, and there's already so much BS and kind of covering their tracks that's come after. Todd Phillips has said Arthur Fleck was never the Joker, it was a name given to him. Well, dude, don't make a Joker movie then if he was never the Joker. It doesn't make sense, and you can really tell that Todd Phillips was lucky to get the DC name, but he didn't want to use it. He's almost embarrassed that this is a DC film, and he doesn't want it to be part of that world. But interesting. I would love to hear what you all think of it. Anybody that's watched the interviews, because when I watch a movie, I like to watch the cast interviews after, because most of the times they're saying the exact same thing, that it just PR spins, but a lot of the times you do get really great insight and commentary of what the process was like for them, why they wanted to take on the project, but also the choices they're making and stuff like that. And this, to me, particularly just the body language, seems like Joaquin Phoenix was not that in love with the film. And I don't know, I know I wasn't crazy about Lady Gaga's involvement in this project. I was excited for her to be in it, but I think she's extremely wasted in the film. People commenting online being like, "Oh, it's Lady Gaga's fault that this movie was bad." No, it's not. She's an actor paid to do a job. She's not the one writing the script. It's just, I don't know, it's just incels being incels, I guess. But okay, let's go on to the final piece of DC news. I thought last week our DC Lanterns HBO series wrapped up with Kyle Chandler. That was only our search for Hal Jordan. Now, it looks like we have found our Jon Stewart. And no, not the host of The Daily Show. I mean our DC Green Lantern, Jon Stewart. And holy moly, I'm so excited, because you know who was cast? Aaron Pierre, the star of Rebel Ridge. Oh my god, as soon as the rumors were coming out that Aaron Pierre was being considered, I was in. I can't remember, what did we talk about? I feel like when I did my Rebel Ridge review, did I talk about Green Lantern, or there was something where I just said Aaron Pierre needs to be in this project? Was it Green Lantern or something else? Because he has got the sauce. He is such a perfect embodiment of at least the Jon Stewart I grew up with from the Justice League series. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I talked about it. Aaron Pierre would be a perfect casting, and it was confirmed this week. HBO Max, everybody, James Gunn, everyone is sharing. Aaron Pierre has even posted the story himself that Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre will be the leads of the Lantern series. It starts filming in January. I am so excited about this. I love it. I think this is just a revolutionary casting. He's still pretty young, so I think it's perfect for the Lantern series, which in itself is about passing the baton. I think both actors are a perfect age, and Kyle Chandler, he's played like a lot of cops and detectives and stuff like that. So this is seriously just phenomenal news to me. I am so excited for this, for the future of DC. I cannot wait to see the Lantern show. I cannot wait for the rest of the Penguin series. It's been so good. Final story, we are going to talk about Christopher Nolan, his next film. Here we go. Christopher Nolan's next movie will be at Universal with Matt Damon in talks to star. So it's looking like it's going to come out July 17th, 2026, which is going to be a massive year for movies. We have Steven Spielberg. It's Quentin Tarantino's final film, 2026. Denis Villeneuve's next film. Matt Reeves, The Batman Part 2 comes out. We're going to have Supergirl coming out that year. We're going to have Jordan Peele. I think his next movie comes out 2026. And now Christopher Nolan. Dude, we are so back. 2026 is going to be such a stacked year. I think Martin Scorsese is it 2026 or 2027? But anyways, he's coming off his Oscar win for Oppenheimer of Best Director, Best Picture. It completely swept. And Matt Damon is going to be the lead. I'm loving Christopher Nolan just picking kind of the guys he's worked with on the side in a couple projects, or just with Matt Damon, 2 projects, right? Interstellar, which is getting a sick 4K re-release. The 10th anniversary, it's going to have like a special collector's edition. As soon as that's available in Canada, I'm pre-ordering it. I do not care. I know I have student loans. I know money is tight. I need that Interstellar 10-year anniversary, but I think Matt Damon's a great choice. Apparently, it's a father-son story. That's the only thing that has really come out about what the story looks like. It's Christopher Nolan. He's the master of keeping it under wraps. I think only, J.J. Abrams and him are the 2 directors I think of when I think of secrets kept under wraps. I'm freaking pumped for this. Christopher Nolan, one of my favorite filmmakers. I rewatched Tenet this week, which I will quickly mention in what else I watched. Damn, I might just rewatch a bunch of Nolan movies, because every time I watch his movies, I take away something new. Recently at the gym, I've been biking a lot, and what I'm doing is just watching movie clips on my phone. So I've watched so many Dark Knight trilogy clips, The Batman. I was watching Tenet over a bunch of days at the gym. Just random movies. I like Blade Runner. I don't know. I watched some Past Lives clips. Is that embarrassing? Any gym goers that are listening, what are you watching? What's your content of choice when you're on the treadmill or the bike or whatever? What are we doing? Are we doing podcasts? Maybe you're listening to this podcast right now while you're sweating your shirt off. Just quickly, a couple things I want to plug before we get into Saturday night. As I said, timestamps are all below, but also go on the social media below. Follow us everywhere. This week I posted something new on my social media yesterday or the day before. I posted a scene breakdown from Dune Part 1 of Paul's vision when he's in the tent after Duke Leto has died. Something new I'm going to be doing every once in a while. I think I'm going to pick a scene from a movie I like, or just a scene I saw in a movie that I really want to break down and kind of get into the guts of it. So go on the social media, show that video some love. It helps the show grow. And I think with that being said, we should move on to our first review of the day. Let's get into Saturday Night. Live from my dad's workshop, it's Watcher of All Things. All right, Saturday Night is a 2024 comedy thriller. Thriller is interesting, but an hour and 49 minutes, currently holding like a 79 and 80% kinda. It's hovering between those two on Rotten Tomatoes. 7.3 on IMDb, has a 3.6 Letterboxd rating, so not terrible. It's pretty like positive reviews in general. Google's in a nutshell is exciting, hilarious, and witty. Directed by Jason Reitman, distributed by Universal Pictures and Sony Pictures. Its budget was between 25 to 30 million, so not a crazy high budget. I think it's, it has a very large cast, a lot of production value in it. Cinematography by Eric Steelberg. The synopsis of the film is, at 11:30 p.m. on October 11th, 1975, a ferocious troupe of young comedians and writers changed television forever. This is the story of what happened behind the scenes in the 90 minutes leading up to the first broadcast of Saturday Night Live, or as it was known that evening, it was just Saturday Night. Even in the synopsis, they're already patting it on the back. Television was changed forever. Okay, no. I can't get ahead of myself for hating this. I didn't hate it. I won't say that. It stars Gabriel LaBelle as Lorne Michaels, or Gabrielle. I'm not sure how you say his name. He played Steven Spielberg in The Fabelmans. I think he's a phenomenal actor. Rachel Sennett, the current It Girl, as Rosie Schuster. Cooper Hoffman is Dick Ebersol. By the way, this cast list is literally going to be a minute and a half, so get ready for me to just read insane star power right now. Dylan O'Brien as Dan Aykroyd, Corey Michael Smith as Chevy Chase, Lamorne Morris as Garrett Morris, Willem Dafoe as... Wait a minute. Lamorne Morris is Garrett Morris. Are they related? I should have Googled that before. Willem Dafoe as David Tebbutt. Ella Hunt as Gilda Radner. Emily Farron as Lorraine Newman. Matt Wood as John Belushi. Kim Matula as Jane Curtin. Finn Wolfhard plays an NBC page. Nicholas Braun plays both Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson. Andrew Barth Feldman plays Neil Levy. And J.K. Simmons plays Milton Berle. So absolute star-studded cast for Saturday night. I was excited to see this. I'm not very familiar with Jason Reitman's work. I haven't watched his Ghostbuster movies because I'm just not a Ghostbusters fan. I don't think those are like stupid movies or anything. That wasn't really the era I grew up with of Ghostbusters. And well, Saturday night I have mixed feelings, to be honest. I think this is a very fun idea, and I think it's just executed in an extremely clumsy, heavy-handed, self-serving, conceited manner. And as we do with every review, let's begin with the performances, because I think that's really all this film is. A very mixed bag for me again. It's just a bunch of impressions for me, with really only two performances I was crazy about, and that's Willem Dafoe as David Tebbutt, because Willem Dafoe is just great in everything he's in. I can watch Willem Dafoe sell me, strips of bacon. He is just so into every character he does. He's such a easy actor. It's just, I know he's doing so much work and he's so dedicated, but he just makes it look so easy in everything he's in. I love Willem Dafoe. A special shout out to Corey Michael Smith as Chevy Chase. I think those two were really the standout performers for me, and I think it was actually, I didn't consciously choose this, but it was very interesting to pair Saturday Night and The Apprentice with each other, because they're both kind of historical retellings of, a period of time where we're getting this historical story about these massive earth-changing, industry-shifting individuals. And I have very different feelings about both of these movies, but they also both strike a lot of the same chords, and they're both New York City films. Rachel Sennett as Rosie Schuster, she's kind of just being Rachel Sennett for me. There's nothing like, I don't know. I think to really get the nuances of any of these performances or the impressions, you have to really know the person they're impersonating. And I don't know anything about Rosie Schuster. I also give Rachel Sennett, I'm a big fan of her. I think she's hilarious, but she's kind of, I don't know. And this kind of goes for all of the women in this movie. They're really put on the back burner and just kind of treated like, I don't know, a lot less important than the men in the story is what I want to say. And I did see some other Letterboxd reviews or online discussions of like, this is really just about pretty much praising Lorne Michael and the men of the show in my eyes. There's really only one or two semi-complex women in the story, with Emily Farron as Lorraine Newman and Kim Matula as Jane Curtin, kind of like, but that kind of goes into a deeper issue. Like, look, the performances are fine in this. Nobody stuck out to me as terrible, but it's just a lot of, when you're watching a TV show and they like slip in someone doing an impression or like a recreation of one celebrity that will show up as a cameo, and it's like, oh, it's kind of funny, they're playing this person, they got this guy to do like a somewhat look-alike. It's pretty much just 2 hours of that, of people trying to do impressions, and some of them are better than others. Some of them are just like lost on me, to be honest. I should explain my relationship with Saturday Night Live. I love Saturday Night Live, and I would say I'm more of a casual fan, but I do watch most episodes, specifically ones when it's a host I love. I always make sure to watch all the sketches after, even if I don't catch it live. So I don't know, the performances were fine in this, but I feel like, and this kind of speaks to a larger issue of this movie, this all just kind of feels like one big inside joke. Like, the story is so shallow and lacking. There is really just, it's kind of just nostalgia porn and pointing at the screen for 2 hours and saying, hey, Saturday Night Live fans, remember this? Remember this? Didn't you hear about this? Haven't you heard all your favorite stars talk about this? Haven't you heard Lorne Michaels talk about this? Hey, you want to know why this is? It's exactly because of this, which is everything I hate about biopics or like prequels or historical retellings. It's just like, hey, that really thing, that thing that you see every day on the TV or whatever, well, this is it. What do you think of that? Without really giving any complex discussions or social discussions of the time or anything, or placing any of this in context. It's just kind of praising everything all the time in this movie. The characters in this are the people, I don't know, the people playing characters that are real life people, you know? The characters themselves are just written in such like strange ways. It just feels like there isn't a single real character arc in this. It's kind of just people show up doing an impression, and Jason Reitman and everyone making this just looks at the audience like, you know this guy, right? Yeah, that's how he was. You know, and it's just like very much just showing public knowledge, not really telling us anything deep, and constantly just beating us over the head with, no one's ever done this in television before. This movie is kind of exhausting. It just feels like there isn't a single real character arc, and a lot of these performances are just kind of left to make a mountain out of a molehill. If you're not an SNL fan, I have no clue why you would see this movie, to be honest, because there's so much that will just be lost on you of, who is that? What are they doing? It doesn't really show any fitting context of the times of where are we in New York right now. And also there's an ice skating scene in this. The movie takes place in October when the show premiered, right? So very confusing, and no one's ever around. It's weird. The comedy aspect as well. They say it's a comedy, but I find it a little hard to judge comedies because I might not laugh, but there might be someone that's dying in their living room watching this, or, you know, there might be a packed theater somewhere that was just loving this and losing their marbles laughing. But it's a little hard to judge because the comedy is so hit or miss in this. There's times where there's a lot of inside jokes in this where it's like, oh, that's funny because if you know this person, then you know why that's funny. But it's not a lot of like just writing jokes in the scenes. They say a lot of jokes that people said in this that aren't really funny to the audience now. It's just like the jokes have kind of transformed into just really statements or general things. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, that's not funny now, but that's just like the joke as what they said. Or maybe it's the way they're written and delivered in the script. They're not presenting it to the audience like, here's a joke for you, because I think there is a lot of directing in this that really lets the comedy down kind of and really brings it into, I feel bad because I like him, but Cooper Hoffman I thought was really poor in this, and his performance stuck out to me in particular and felt very theater production or like high school theater production. Not that I don't want to knock on theater performers because theater is great. It felt very high school theater performer of kid playing dress up kind of, and I know he's playing like a 27-year-old, but he seems a little bit out of place. There's just a lot of like a bunch of kids putting on a performance, which is what Saturday Night was at the time. Saturday Night Live literally was a bunch of 20-year-olds, but it just kind of feels like, it feels very meta. The production and the execution of this story feels very meta and self-referential to the actual making of Saturday Night Live, if that makes any sense. Like narratively, I don't know, were they trying to have it play like an SNL episode where every scene is kind of a sketch or a vignette of what happened and there's musical acts? Because I'm not sure what the intended structure here is from Jason Reitman. Maybe because to an unfamiliar eye who doesn't watch SNL, it just seems like a lot of scenes meshed together with people we're meant to be best buds with. But to an SNL fan, this could really feel like a Saturday Night Live episode where we're just getting kind of all these different situations and sets and different rooms and people interacting and kind of saying jokes at each other's faces, you know, not really with any complete, I don't know, passion a lot of the time, or just like it's very melodramatic at times and very self-praising and just patting each other on the back or whatever and just praising Lorne Michaels over and over. I don't know, maybe the irony of the movie is Lorne Michaels doesn't know what the show is when he's asked in the movie, and it often doesn't feel like Jason Reitman knows what this movie is. Are you trying to be a social commentary? Are you just trying to be a fun dramatization? Just a simple recreating? Like, what are we doing here? Because I already know just from a simple Google that they changed tons of stuff about like what actually happened. There's lots of historical inaccuracies, which who cares? Like, it is fun to just see this kind of play out, and I love the idea of telling the 90 minutes before the show went on, but just to the unfamiliar eye or the audience member, it's lost on us. I think, you know, it's just a very ironic and self-referential project. It's sort of weird how much I disliked the cast as well. It feels very, I don't know, like Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, and Gilda Radner and Lorraine Newman. I disliked them. I almost appreciate that they're not trying to just praise everyone in the movie, and they're trying to show like, oh yeah, it was a little cliquey. Everyone is just so goddamn unlikable in this, other than Lorne Michaels, who is just painted as this saint. And yeah, I don't know. It's strange characterizations. Some of the strangest characterizations I've seen in a movie in a while. Like Garrett Morris was really one of the only characters that has a really interesting story of like, he was this theater actor and he's talking about how it's weird and what's my role here. I don't really understand what I'm supposed to be because I'm just playing. You're just wanting me to play play black stereotypes. When I'm a trained theater actor and I, sang in Italian and performed in Italian, that's the only semblance of character arc or any complex emotional thought other than Lorne Michaels' marriage with Rosie Schuster that is just like randomly talked about in the movie, but doesn't ever feel like it's really digging in and getting somewhere. It's just like trying to poke at, yeah, Lorne Michaels is actually a complicated genius that not everyone understood. Whoop-de-doo. Like, at least Lamorne Morris is actually giving a good performance in this that is very funny at times. And I forgot to mention him with Corey Michael Smith and Willem Dafoe, but those three are really the only three that are giving us anything of any substance to me. Everyone else is just like, hey, remember this? Hey, you know this guy. This is my best blank impression. And it's not interesting. I think to SNL extremes and fanatics, you will love this, but it just feels like Jason Reitman is so far up Lorne Michaels' ass, and it's just very, I don't know, it just feels weird watching this and very referential and like a bad version of Birdman, or just watch Charlie work from It's Always Sunny if you want a movie like this. Like, it's meant to kind of be shot like a one-shot almost, but there is stuff I liked about it. Like, I really liked all the Johnny Carson stuff that will NBC cut to a rerun or give this group of 20-year-olds a chance because they were having contract disputes with Johnny Carson, and they were kind of using this project as a threat to Johnny Carson. Like, they didn't actually want to have the show run, and it's all in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything. Lorne Michaels and everyone was just kind of set up to fail, and all that is very interesting, but it's just when they go so over the top of, do you know Lorne Michaels? He's a genius. He's revolutionizing. Oh my God, it's too much. Whereas, the next movie we're going to talk about after spoilers, we'll get into spoilers in a moment, is like, I don't know, kind of just very much more matter of fact and not trying to praise anyone or really bash on everyone. It's just showing complex people. They constantly set up a showdown of this generation versus the past generation, which is some of my favorite stuff in the movie. That's what I really enjoyed about this movie, specifically, like Lorne versus Johnny, as well as Chevy Chase versus Milton Berle was such a fascinating showdown. And there's one scene where they really get into it, which I'll talk about in spoilers. And that was one thing I really loved. There is good stuff that I think everyone can enjoy in this, but overall, I think as a historian or a historical fan and a casual SNL fan / lover, it's fun to watch it all unravel and see things explained that I vaguely know about or that still remain today, but it mostly is everything I don't like about biopics. This feels like the first, group biopic of this whole show and all of these people. It feels very inside jokes, very pat itself on the back, and it just is very frustrating at times, which, yes, Saturday Night Live did change television. It did, and it still remains today. They're in season 50 right now, which is amazing of itself, but holy shit, are they loving the fact throughout the movie that they're Saturday Night Live, we can do whatever we want, we're making something magical. Everyone on this cast was revolutionary, and there's been no one else like them. It's very much, it's too much at times, and I would only really recommend this movie to Saturday Night Live fans, but only if you really love the cast of that time, the stars, or the cast of this movie themselves. Like, if you're a Rachel Sennett fan, if you love Lamorne Morris like I do, or Gabriel LaBelle, I loved him in The Fabelmans, so I was excited to see what he could do, which I think the script just really leaves all of the cast out to dry. All of these great young actors are really meant to do so much with nothing. I gave this 3 out of 5. It was a bit of a letdown for me, to be honest. I was very excited to see this, but it just feels like, oh, look at all these impressions on screen and remember this, but let's get into spoilers because we still got another review to come. Okay, here we go. Spoilers for Saturday Night. I mean, it's based on a true story, so obviously they make it to air because it's been 50 seasons, but the story that they're trying to tell, I found it such a strange flip of the switch that got everyone to work together before airtime. Like, everybody hates each other for the entire movie. The whole crew is just rebelling, but Lorne gives this, like, generic speech to Willem Dafoe's character, David Tebbutt. That's his name, right? He just gives this, like, oh, I love New York speech, or like, what is Saturday Night? And he just lists all these random things that people from New York would know, and it's just given in the like least passionate way, and that feels tough on Gabriel LaBelle, but it's just, the speech is so poorly written and just feels so generic and boring and anticlimactic, and then I don't know, it's just like everybody buys in all of a sudden, and oh, Chevy Chase helped lay the bricks with the cast, and everyone laughed at the first few sketches together, and all the audience was there, it was a packed house, and everyone was so excited excited. And it's just, again, very like praising oneself. It's so conceited, this movie. Like, this movie acts like the only thing that was happening in the world at this time. And it's so exclusive to this studio, this story. Nothing else was going on in the world. Literally, Lamorne Morris is the only character that I was like, oh, that's fun. It kind of speaks to a larger social issues of one black cast member, and they're just getting him to do all the stereotypical stuff. So I don't know. It's just very like, oh, everybody was so lovey-dovey all of a sudden, and they all inspired each other every day, and they lived happily ever after. The Chevy Chase and Milton Berle showdown, where Milton Berle is hitting on Chevy's fiance, that was just one of the most tense parts of the movie for me, that I was like, holy shit, they are absolutely going at it with each other. And then Milton flashes his penis and pulls it out because apparently he had a huge hog, and whips it out right in front of Chevy's fiance and shows Chevy, and he's like, oh, people don't know me for my comedy. That was a crazy scene, but it was literally a cockfight, a pissing contest. It was pretty insane, but I have to say J.K. Simmons plays an asshole so well in this movie, and Chevy Chase just plays such a perfect, conceited, insecure, narcissistic guy. I also liked Willem Dafoe's characterization of like that Two-Face studio suit, the guy who's like, oh, this is Lorne Michaels, he's gonna change television for us, and then turns out the real truth behind the matter was just the fact that this whole show was a sham. They made the show because they wanted Johnny to feel threatened, and they wanted Johnny Carson to feel like he was losing grip of NBC, and they were going to let him go. So they gave the chance to all these 20-year-olds, but they were just going to cut it before live and cut to a rerun and show Johnny Carson that the reruns get more viewership than any other program, so they're happy to play the reruns. I like that characterization from Willem Dafoe. He's very passionate at times, and I don't know, there's just performances and showdowns that just work really well in the script, and then there's other moments that just feel so hollow and just like, remember this? Like, all of the John Belushi stuff is just like, oh, he was such a complicated soul, but he was brilliant. And there's this scene where Gilda Radner, Lorne Michaels, and Jim Belushi all went to Rockefeller Center with the skating rink at Rockefeller Center. And like I said, the movie takes place in October, and Lorne gave such this passionate talk to John Belushi that he got him to come back to the show or whatever. And it all just feels very meh, like, you know what's coming. It's all very predictable, even if you don't know the history of Saturday Night Live. Like, it's just very frustrating at times to me, but everything that kind of is within this tight space of the studio, of these showdowns between Chevy Chase and Milton Berle, whether it's a showdown of Garrett Morris fighting with himself of what is my purpose here, but also trying to understand what his role is. Am I here to play a stereotype? Do they not really want me here and they just cast me so they can, avoid a lawsuit or something like that? I don't know. It's a very mixed bag. This movie is so mixed feelings for me, because there's some stuff in this where I was like, oh, I'm loving this. This is so enjoyable. And then it cuts away and we have a completely different scene of like, oh, but remember, they were doing drugs. It's crazy. And it's like, this doesn't feel like it's serving any important plot. The end credits. I mean, look, this is a very well crafted movie. I will say, like, it looks cool and there's a lot of like interesting artisticness about this, and the set is very immersive and stuff like that. But I did like that the credits at the end of the movie are actually made like the SNL intro where they're introducing everyone, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I like that. There is some artistic flair despite having such a lackluster script, conceited, and just, oh, I only care about these people are the greatest people in the world and this is the greatest television show in the world, and God, I love New York City, but I'm gonna give the most passionless speech about it. It's just weird stuff. It's a weird movie. It's hard to explain, but yeah, obviously they make it to air, and just the whole time, every time they talk about Lorne in this movie, everyone is talking like he's some prophet and he's able to make things happen that no one else can, and oh, he's a comedic mind and he's a genius behind everything. But at the same time, like, I will give them some credit. They do show that Lorne Michaels maybe was in over his head at times. Like, he was originally going to do Weekend Update, and then when he did it in dress, it just was not funny and no one laughed. People were only laughing at the parts that he wasn't in. So it does show that he is a little bit self-obsessed as well. And I mean, anyone making a show like this maybe has to be a little bit self-obsessed. I don't know. It's just such a weird movie. And one thing I do like that they do paint some of the people very negatively, that like Dan Aykroyd was very much a womanizer and just a flirt with everyone. And the way, he flirts with Lorraine Newman, and I don't know, maybe they were together or something like that. But, and Lorraine Newman, like the way she's characterized, it seems like she almost thought it was authentic and he wasn't just a womanizer flirting with everyone. But then, Dan Aykroyd's flirting with the other women and you can see she is like visibly upset and doesn't know what to make of it. And I like that. That's the only complex kind of emotions given to women other than Kim Matula as Jane Curtin. She has one scene with Garrett Morris where they're talking about, they're sharing with each other, like, what are we supposed to be on the show? And she's like, I just play moms or whatever. Apparently I'm an old cast member. And Garrett Morris is like, yeah, I'm just, the black guy who's going to play a robber, or I'm going to play a pimp or whatever. And those are the only interesting conversations in a lot of this. And then there's other parts where it's diving into Lorne Michaels' personal life where it's like, I don't give a shit. This does not matter. Oh, he had a tough upbringing. His dad like lost his job or whatever, and they had to sell everything. And it's just so surface level, like, wow, look how far he's come. Yeah, I don't know. There's not really tons of spoilers to go through in here because pretty much what's in the trailer is what you're going to see on screen, but also it's just a very basic and simplified story of how Lorne just convinces people to work for him. Like a lighting guy, he just goes to the studio a few floors down and says, hey man, I need a lighting guy. Can you come work with me? And the guy just gets up and leaves that show. It's just people treat him like a messiah, and it's very tiring at times. I was very exhausted by the end of this movie. I thought, yeah, that was fun, but I wouldn't want to watch this again. So that's been Saturday night. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. I would really only recommend it to diehard Saturday Night Live fans that like to consume all things Saturday Night Live, like the books. There's been tons of historical books that have come out. I don't know, just kind of meh. All right, I think that's going to do it for Saturday night. Let's move on to The Apprentice, a movie I am so excited to talk about. You fired. The Apprentice is a 2024 drama/history film. It is 2 hours. It is currently holding a 79/80% on Rotten Tomatoes, kind of moving between those. Google's in a nutshell is fascinating, confident, stirring. I believe it has a widespread release now, so you can see it anywhere. It is directed by Ali Abbasi, who I've never seen any of his films, but I'll talk about it in the review. He does a hell of a job with this. Its budget was $16 million. Very impressive. Cinematography, Casper Tuxen, a great looking film as well. It is distributed by Nordisk Film, Mongrel Media, and Studio Canal UK. The film stars Sebastian Stan as Donald Trump, Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn, Maria Bakalova as Ivana Trump, Emily Mitchell as Ivanka Trump, Martin Donovan as Fred Trump, Patch Darragh as Daniel Sullivan, Stuart Hughes as Mike Wallace, Eoin Duffy as Tony Schwartz, Ben Sullivan as Russell Eldridge, Mark Rendell as Roger Stone, Catherine McNally as Marianne Trump, Charlie Carrick as Freddie Trump, Bruce Beaton as Andy Warhol, and Ron Lee as Victor Palmieri. The Apprentice, I kind of friggin' loved this movie. I can't lie to you guys. Sure, it maybe is a little bit basic and very Blackberry, very Succession, and very just like straight up Frankenstein, but this was the perfect palate cleanser after watching 2 hours of people doing impressions and just doing super niche inside jokes and references the general public wouldn't get. I loved this. It's like I said, very Blackberry, very Succession, but those are two things I loved. I was friggin' crazy about Blackberry last year. Succession is one of my favorite shows, and this was so entertaining from minute one to curtains, and it was something I really didn't expect what I got in this movie. I thought, okay, it's a Trump movie, and in all honesty, I wasn't that excited to see this. I thought, okay, it's just gonna be a movie, kind of what Saturday Night Live is, just pointing to stuff and explaining everything about Trump today. Whereas it's kind of a very human story telling a specific relationship story. But let's start with the cast. Sebastian Stan, my man, Bucky Barnes. I watched him as well in A Different Man this week. Sebastian Stan is unironically my favorite Donald Trump. Saturday Night Live, move over because there is a new Donald Trump in town. Oh my God. There is some scenes in this where I was crying laughing because it's like terrifying to see, oh my God, Sebastian Stan is just doing a flawless Trump in this conversation. And his character, he has such a great evolution. I love that it's not like scene one, he's instantly the Donald Trump that we recognize. You really do see him kind of adding these character traits and developing as a person over the film. Like, I don't know, I feel psycho to say, but I actually want him to get an Oscar nomination for this movie because he just brings Donald Trump alive in this. Just the body movement and the mannerisms. He's not trying to do an impression. He just kind of is a character and he just grows into this guy. And it's not like a Saturday Night Live impression where he's putting on this voice. My name's Donald Trump and wrong. Like, he's not trying to do any of that. He's just he's not changing his voice that much. He's just kind of embodying him and showing an attitude within a story of a young Donald Trump, which I just appreciated so much. And Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn was amazing. It felt like we have Kendall Roy back. back. I was blown away. All the performances in this were outstanding. There was no one in this movie where I was like, ugh, okay, they're definitely a mismatch for the story. Just like Blackberry, which now I want to rewatch Blackberry because this was so much fun. Maria Bakalova, who is slowly becoming one of my favorite actresses. And honestly, after watching this and A Different Man in the same week, Sebastian Stan may be one of my favorite performers working right now. Are we all just sleeping on him because he's in Marvel movies and he's Bucky Barnes? Did we all just simultaneously forget I, Tonya, which, to be honest, he should have got an Oscar nomination for. I love I, Tonya. I thought Margot Robbie's inspirational in that movie. Holy moly, I cannot say enough great things about Sebastian Stan's performance in this. Like, he's such a different schmuck at the start of the movie that you just see he's this low life kind of begging for business and stuff like that, to where there's this one scene where it's almost like a flip of a switch where it's like, holy shit, that is the Donald Trump of today. Just the constant overindulgence of words and the verbal diarrhea of, oh yeah, I wanted to build it taller. I could have built it taller. I could have built it taller than the Twin Towers. But I mean, I didn't want to, but I did, and people are gonna love it. But no, really, you know, where he's just like, he's saying one thing, or the point he's making one point, but he's gonna say it in 10 different ways in one streamlined sentence without any breaks, and he's going to indulge his image. He's gonna blame others. Oh my God, I love this. And I haven't stopped thinking about this movie since last night. I seriously enjoyed it so much. This was just such a perfect palate cleanser after Saturday night because it actually has a through line of emotional arcs. It's not just constantly hitting the same emotional points and driving the same point over your head and just smashing your nose and rubbing your nose in the same points over and over of, oh, look at this genius, or, oh, look at this terrible guy, which I thought is what this movie was going to be of. Here's everything about Donald Trump in 2024 explained over 2 hours. It's kind of just like a decade-long story of a friendship and family and love and a business historical retelling, you know? I don't know, there's a story here that's so fascinating, disconnected from everything else that we know now. And as much as this really does, like, it is dunking on Donald Trump, it actually tells a very fascinating story about a loser that learns the rules, exploits them, and then changes them. There is an actual emotional center to this movie, and it's telling us something. It's educational, unlike Saturday Night. I love the family aspect of this because at the start of the movie, it's almost like, wow, Donald Trump, it was a family man. He was embarrassed by his father. He was embarrassed by his brother. He loved his mom. He was such a mama's boy. And one thing I really adored about this is Sebastian Stan's portrayal of Donald Trump with his mother. Like, there's a real relationship there that, you know, I won't spoil anything of how things kind of go, although I guess if you've read Wikipedia, like, you know Donald Trump's history, but just the emotional stakes and everything that's raising and shifting and the evolution of this story is so interesting. Like, this is a guy whose father had very little respect for him and his siblings, and it seems like everyone in this movie has a point to prove. It's not just, you know, it's not just painting broad strokes of Republicans bad, Donald Trump bad. It's like, it's actually trying to make an argument of, you want to know the monster that we see today? This is how it happened, and this is all of this stuff. You know, there's so much great social commentary in this, and it shows just one piece on a larger chessboard, really, specifically telling the story. And I love the time they picked of the late 70s to the late 80s when Trump was just really starting in New York and kind of became this real estate mogul, bankrupted all these, you know, different businesses or whatever, found all these loopholes. And I don't know, I just loved how much the world is really built around our subjects. And rather than Saturday Night, where there's only one thing matters in that movie, and that's how great the cast members were and how great Saturday Night Live is, this movie is just explaining so many social, you know, inputs and social variables on this man and why he was the way he was and the world that he was kind of molded in. And it's a weirdly, I don't want to say humanizing, because at no point does it really praise Trump, but there is times where it humanizes him and it gives him credit. Like, I don't know, in that first hour, he makes Roy Cohn look like Hitler, and by the end, Roy Cohn is looking like Mother Teresa. It's such a great story, and it's such an inventive story based on a mentorship, a friendship, familial bond, two dudes who just like took on the world together and kind of broke down walls and broke the system. And it's not really a spoiler because I think it's in the trailer, but Roy Cohn's like, oh, Donnie, did you play sports when you were a kid? Well, they tell you to play the ball, not the man. That's not how life is. You got to play the man. You got to play into them, because it's so true. And there's so many amazing explorations of the guy Donald Trump is today and the monster and just the buffoon he is today. And it also goes into like his pill use, all the cosmetic shit and his hair. And I don't know, I did see one interesting Letterboxd review that was like, it kind of feels weak to take jabs at Trump's weight and his hair. But I don't think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to show that he's like, he can't even get healthy in a real way. He has to cheat the system. But I'll talk about more about that in spoilers, I think. I mean, it's so weird reviewing historical movies because it's like, if you just read the Wikipedia, that's the spoilers of the movie. And yeah, he's alive today. He doesn't die in this movie, Donald Trump. I don't know. Perhaps what I appreciated the most is they really just limited the film to this era, to this decade that they're focusing on. I think it takes place until like 1990, maybe, or 1992, something like that. But it's kind of like Ronald Reagan's the end of his reign in like 1991, 1990. I just loved how limited it is. Not every scene was referencing Make America Great Again, his abortion policies, his economic policies, everything today. Like, not everything has to pull on the present and constantly explain and cut to the present. I loved how, like, yes, it shows how he made his quote unquote wealth, his business practices, and his road to the demon he is today. But a lot of this just feels like a completely different Donald Trump at the start of this movie that isn't just the clips we see of him on the internet and the news. It really gives you, it feels like the opportunity of a lifetime to be a fly on the wall of this man's life who is just raised in, he's raised with a gold spoon or whatever, and I'm sure his son will end up the same, of Barron, one of his sons. But yeah, there's just so much more complexity to this story than Saturday Night. And if you're going to do a double feature, I would recommend, I have two double feature recommendations for you. Go see A Different Man and then go see The Apprentice, and you can enjoy Sebastian Stan double feature, or you can see Saturday Night and then go see The Apprentice and enjoy a movie that's just patting itself on the back the entire time and doing kind of a biopic or like historical retelling or whatever that is. People like telling the story of the Cheeto or Blackberry or whatever, and people just praising something, whatever those kinds of movies are like a product historical biography. I don't know. Blackberry I loved versus Saturday Night and The Apprentice. Saturday Night was completely very mixed for me, but The Apprentice I loved. It's just telling a story and it's limiting itself and it's not trying to do more than it needs to. For me, they perfectly balanced what we needed. And I feel like, what's not to love? Sure, it occasionally references where he got this idea from or like explains things of today, and it's obvious what you're going to get out of this movie, but at the same time, it's not. It really does take turns that I wasn't expecting, and of like, oh, I didn't know that about Trump. That's really interesting. I don't know, sort of, it doesn't do that thing all the time where explaining how the character got their gun. Like, how did Han Solo get his gun? Or, I don't know, how did they get that scar? Stuff like that, of super specific things and character attributes, or how did he get his, I don't know. It's just, we don't need to explain everything about the person and be like, oh, remember this is how they got it, like Saturday Night does, or a lot of prequel movies do, because this does feel like a prequel movie almost. But I want to give some more praise to the directing. Ali Abbasi, he knocks this out of the park. It is directed like a Succession episode, directed like Blackberry. I loved it. It feels just like an episode of Succession. Like, oh my God, specifically having Jeremy Strong there, I was like, this is fascinating. The cinematography by Casper Tuxen. This movie is a joy to look at because it's shot like almost home video or like documentary style, shot on VHS, and the aspect ratio is 4:3 or whatever that is. I loved how this movie looked, and it was just such a joy. I would watch this movie again tomorrow because it was actually so fascinating and there's such an energy to it. I loved it. Look, overall, I think I'm just going to get into spoilers. There's not really much more I can sell you on. I think this was such a goddamn blast, and in all honesty, I was not that interested, like I said, to see this. I thought it's just going to be overbearing and kind of dunk on Trump for 2 hours, but they're trying to make an argument here. They're trying to do, this is a character analysis of one of the biggest narcissists in history, Donald J. Trump. And I just love that instead of the constant bashing and dunking, it uses a relationship, a friendship between Roy Cohn and Donald Trump to explore a time period. I don't know, just give us this world in a nutshell and this man in a nutshell, the man that we sadly have to see all the time on the news. And it's not revolutionary. It's a lot of it is very bog standard not documentary, but like historical retelling stuff. So it doesn't earn like a 4.5 out of 5. I don't know, maybe I'll change it to a 4.5 because the performances in this were just such a joy to watch, but also the writing. I loved the writing in this. Oh my God, I thought the script was friggin' brilliant. I loved it. 4 out of 5. I gave it a 4 out of 5, but I honestly might change it to 4.5. I was so drawn in. It kills me that I almost left over 5 minutes because other people's actions reactions. Like, the couple behind me was getting freaky. They left after 20 minutes. So clearly they were just waiting for an Uber and found an empty theater until people showed up. I would totally recommend The Apprentice. It was so much fun. But let's get into spoilers. So I didn't know like tons about Donald Trump's background. I knew more about his business exploits, and really from 2000 onward, I didn't know that he almost ran for president in, was it 1992, 1999, 2000, something like that. He had almost ran for president before in like the Reform Party. I went on his Wikipedia after and it was fascinating, but that's not even in this movie. What I didn't know about Trump was really his family dynamics, and that his brother died of an alcohol-induced heart attack. And that part of the movie was heartbreaking to me. I just seeing that brother dynamic play out on screen of holy shit, like Donald Trump was actually almost human at one point, and their dad, Fred Trump, just hates the brother that he was a pilot. And that's very clear why he became an alcoholic, because he hated his life because his dad just crapped on him all the time. And oh my God, when his brother dies in the movie, it was heartbreaking. And you see, I don't know, there's an amazing scene, his relationship with Ivana as well, played by Maria Bakalova, who's brilliant in this as well. Their relationship is so manufactured as well, but also you can really see where the divide, I mean, it started before that, but their love and their relationship really did die with the death of Freddie. And, you see Donald break down in his room and realize, because, a few days before he had turned him away from staying with them or giving him really any money or his help. He wanted to be an uncle, and he's clearly struggling with alcoholism and drug use. And it's just heartbreaking. Trump, he starts crying, Donald Trump, and Ivana is trying to comfort him, and he's like, don't touch me, stop looking at me. And he's very shut off, doesn't want to be a human. It's like he needs to just be that killer. And that's what this movie is. Like this movie is all about, you're either a killer or you're a loser. And he just doesn't let up the entire time. And his relationship with his mother and his father is really interesting as well, because his father really doesn't like him until he's successful and says like, oh, we always need to help little Donnie. And I don't know, it's just, I think he really was kind of a family man in the start and cared about his mother. Like his relationship with his mother was very touching, who was a Scottish immigrant, and his mother was very proud of him through the entire journey. But then towards the end, Donald really turns on his mother and is kind of just treating them as a bank and saying, I want to be the head of the company because I need to pay my bankers or whatever. And he kind of abandons his family. Very interesting. And they don't really go into the other siblings, but I know his sister, who I believe died, hated his political career. They really focus on mother, father, obviously Roy Cohn, who that dynamic was amazing throughout the entire movie. But yeah, it's he has this reputation. Once he accomplishes that reputation, he doesn't stray away for it for the rest of the movie, and he doesn't care who he has to hurt to maintain that reputation. And it's fascinating. Again, this movie is so complex, and it's really digging deep to try and not just give you a caricature and be like, yeah, this monster that's on your TV every day, well, he wasn't just racist before, he was also a family man. Like, it's just it's crazy. But they do, as I said, they do the thing occasionally where they explain where a slogan or a reason he does something comes from. He gets a Ronald Reagan re-election pin that says, let's make America great again. Well, that's where he got his slogan from. So it is what it is. Like, you can't make one of these movies without doing those moments. You need to explain who he is, the man today, or whatever. But for me, one of the craziest parts of the story was the whole Roy Cohn story arc. Other than, I think my favorite dynamic in the movie was him and Ivana, and him and his brother, but also the Roy Cohn part was heartbreaking. Roy Cohn was a terrible person as well. He was part of the Rosenberg's trial, and also he was just a crazy bigot. But, at the start of the movie, Roy Cohn is characterized as this bigoted party animal, and he ends up being this very sick because he died of AIDS, kind of Dr. Frankenstein, who realizes like, holy shit, I've created a monster. And Jeremy Strong, I wouldn't be surprised if he got an Oscar nomination, because he's phenomenal in this. And I think, like, I don't know, I could see both of the two male leads getting Oscar nominations for this. I feel maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I think Sebastian Stan is phenomenal in this. And I think Jeremy Strong is phenomenal in this as well. He's so great. Every scene they have together is electric. And just the character arc and the journey their relationship takes. It starts as Donald Trump is a nobody. Roy Cohn wants to see him and meet him. He's like, oh, you're Fred Trump's kid, right? And then Donald is just pleading with him, I need your help, I need your help. And then he teaches him the ropes. And all of a sudden, it's just, he's not listening to Roy anymore. It's completely completely out of his hands. It's fascinating. I don't know. There's just so many interesting dynamics, and I love how they show everything about him. Everything about Donald Trump is so manufactured, so obtained through loopholes and cheating. Like, he hasn't earned a single thing in his life. He's just a leech that's been slipping through the cracks. His marriage, that prenup with Ivana, she nearly left him, but he had to pay her to stay. And they show a really difficult moment where she got him a gift because clearly their marriage is struggling. And look, I don't know how much of this is true. Of course, they clearly changed stuff, but the story they're telling is so much more compelling than anything they changed in Saturday Night. So she gets him this book called The G-Spot or whatever, and it's supposed to be a sex book that's supposed to help couples kind of rekindle. And she gives it to him, but he's so preoccupied. And then he says, I'm not attracted to you anymore. Every time I kiss you, it feels like a duty. It feels like a job. It feels like I have to. And she's visibly upset. And then they get in an argument and he rapes her. And it's a tough scene, but I think it's a necessary scene to show the monster he is and the depths he's willing to go to prove points. And obviously he has a history with sexual assault, bribery, breaking the rules. He doesn't care about human feelings or anyone but himself. He got Ivana to get breast implants and then says, I don't even like him or whatever. It's just, I don't know. There's so much manufactured, cheating, disgusting rule breaking about him and his health. Like, it's so interesting the juxtaposition they do with Roy Cohn's funeral versus Trump getting liposuction. It's just like such a fascinating cut between the funeral and that process of the monster he's made, how Roy Cohn ended up. He didn't want to help Roy, and he didn't want to help Roy's what was his name? Robert. He kicked Robert out of the hotel when he found out he had AIDS, and he didn't figure that Roy had AIDS because he wasn't returning his calls. Just everything about him, his hair implant, like they cut his bald spot out and stapled his head so he had less scalp or whatever. It's just fascinating. And his businesses, of course, he gets tax exemptions. He gets all of these loopholes broken. He's never paying anybody. All of his construction workers he's not paying. Everything about him is fake, manufactured, obtained through loopholes. It's insane. I would 100% recommend The Apprentice. It's been one of the most fun movies and fascinating historical tales I've watched in a while. Another great double feature would be Blackberry and The Apprentice. Watch these together. I think it's telling such an honest, entertaining, horrifying, at times laugh out loud, funny story. And Sebastian Stan continues to fascinate me. I gave it, 4 out of 5, maybe a 4.5 out of 5 because I seriously enjoyed this. But let's move on to what else I watched. Okay, this episode's running a little long, so I'm just going to quickly run through. I'm going to branch all my TV shows together for what else I watched. Okay, first movie, we watched Halloween 2 from 1981. We have decided the continuity path that we're going to go on is Halloween. We watched Halloween 2, but we're not going to go with that path. We're going to go all the new ones. So in that continuity, it's the first movie and then the 3 new ones. So Halloween 2 is fine. Definitely loses the magic compared to the first one. There's characters in it that are just so unbelievably stupid compared to the first one that it's frustrating to watch. TV shows I watched this week: The Penguin episode 3, Only Murders in the Building season 4 episode 6 to 7, Survivor 47 episode 4, and English Teacher 5 to 6 episode 5 to 6. The Penguin, oh my god, amazing. Literally just electric. I look forward to it every week. Like Sundays, I'm so excited for Sundays to watch The Penguin. Sophia Falcone is one of the most interesting characters, and same with Oz Cobb as well. English Teacher is so damn funny. Same with Only Murders in the Building. They're both just great comedies that you're drawn to every week that are just like lighthearted at times, but make great storytelling and dramatic storytelling at times as well. Survivor episode 4 this week. God damn, what a mess of an episode, but Genevieve is finally tuning in. Genevieve is pulling up her bootstraps. We're getting the Genevieve winner edit. I'm kidding. She's really done nothing until Keyshawn. But Keyshawn, I was really ready for Rome to go home, and I thought Saul was going to punch him in the face because Rome was a psycho this week, following around someone from like 3 inches behind them all day. Oh my god, that's just so annoying. And I get that it's a game, but come on, man. Have some dignity. It's embarrassing. But Rome might be the best villain of the new era. I think people might not like to hear that, but Rome, I feel like he's going to come back for 50 because he is the biggest villain we've had of the new era so far in my eyes. Like Q was a villain, but he was just threatened to quit all the time. Rome is determined to win, and he's willing to be be such a jerk to win. Survivor is just really good. I'm loving this season. It's such great dynamics, and the cast is really growing on me. As I mentioned, I saw A Different Man earlier this week starring Sebastian Stan. Whoa, bars. I loved it. So much fun. I gave it 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. It was a blast. I think Sebastian Stan gives such a transformative performance. It's one of my favorite dark comedies I've seen in a long time. It just the whole time reminded me of that I Think You Should Leave sketch where Tim Robinson goes to a magic show and gets embarrassed, and then at the end he just screams, "You ruined my fucking life." That's literally how this was. And it's just everyone gives dynamite performances in this. Adam Pearson's really great in it. The actress who's in Worst Person in the World, she's really good in it as well. A Different Man, I would totally recommend. I also rewatched a couple movies. Actually, another new movie I watched was Hold Your Breath. It's a new Star original Disney Plus horror movie. It was pretty bad, honestly. I wouldn't recommend it. It was very mediocre, generic. Everybody in the movie has iPhone face, even though it's taking place during the 1930s and the Great Depression in the Dust Bowl. Wasn't a huge fan. I don't think I'd want to rewatch it anytime soon. I also rewatched Dune Part 1 yesterday just because I was reading Heretics of Dune, which is so far not my favorite Dune book, but I was like, God, I missed when it was like Paul Atreides and Lady Jessica and Chani, you know, all the OGs. God, that movie, flawless to me. Dune Part 1 is literally possibly the best sci-fi movie ever for me. And then I finally finished Tenet. I was watching it every day. I was watching Tenet every day at the gym, like bit by bit, every day when I was biking, as I mentioned. What a mess of a movie, but just so much fun. I mean, it might be Christopher Nolan's weakest movie, but I love it. It's a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd for me because it's just so entertaining. You have no clue what's going on. Some of the performances are pretty meh, like Kenneth Branagh is questionable. It's a fun movie, you know? If you haven't seen Tenet, you want to watch something that you're not going to understand the entire time, check it out. And also this week I hit 50 movies for 2024 new releases, and then this year I've watched 123 movies. So we're cooking. I honestly think we might get to like 75 or 80 by the end of the year because I still have so many things I need to watch before even Christmas time. And then between Christmas Day and New Year's, there's like 4 movies coming out that I want to see. This weekend, we are going to watch the 2 Halloween movies of the new trilogy. So that's Halloween and Halloween Kills, I think. And then the third one's Halloween End. We might also check that out. But this is coming out Thanksgiving Monday, obviously. So I will have watched those. Oh, I also got a new video game. I know I don't often get new video games because they're expensive, but I got this game called Hell Let Loose. It was $70 Canadian. It is the hardest shooter game I have ever played. It's a World War II first-person shooter game, but it is so much fun. It's so strategic, but oh my God, the lobbies are so toxic, like unbelievably toxic. But yeah, if you like World War II or shooter games in general, I would check it out on YouTube because I feel like a lot of people would be really into it. Some games that I might get in the future, I'll get FC 25 FIFA when it's free, probably on EA Play, or at Christmas time if it's on a crazy sale. But my friend recommended Baldur's Gate 3. That's what it's called, right? Baldur's Gate 3, which I think will be my next game I get. I'm starting to get interested in Dungeons and Dragons and all those fun like role games kind of. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Of course, Sunday night, I'm going to watch The Penguin. I wouldn't miss it for the world, but I think that's what else I watched. I think that's going to do it for episode 39, Saturday Night and The Apprentice. Another fun, I think very productive episode of Watcher of All Things. Let's be real. I'm having so much fun making this. Reach out. What did you think of Saturday Night? Do you think it was honest about like Saturday Night's legacy? Also, The Apprentice, if you did see it, let me know what you thought of Sebastian Stan's Trump impression. I would love to hear from you. As always, rate and review the show 5 stars. Follow us on all of the streaming platforms or wherever you get all of your good podcasts. Share it with a friend, recommend it to a coworker, play it this weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, or whenever, American Thanksgiving next month. Play it in the car on your family journey to Thanksgiving dinner or wherever. Give it 5 stars, leave a positive review, follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Acast. We are a Acast produced podcast, but we're also on YouTube. Go subscribe on the YouTube channel, hit that like button and subscribe. Also hit hit the notification bell so you know whenever I upload new shorts, new videos. Comment down below what's been your favorite movie. I want to hear what's your favorite Thanksgiving meal. What's your favorite Thanksgiving dessert? Mine's an apple crumble or an apple pie. You can also email the show, watcherofallthings@gmail.com. Get in touch with us that way. Like I said, follow us on all the social media. This is all linked below. TikTok, we are watcher.of.all.things. Instagram and Threads, it's the same username. It's just at watcherofallthings. Letterboxd, you can follow my personal Letterboxd. Go see my top 50 of 2024. Go see what I'm reviewing. KikiJ70, that's KIKIJ70. That is my username. I will definitely follow you back. Hit me up on Letterboxd. Next week, probably We Live in Time. I'm going away next weekend, so I'll squeeze it in though. You know me, I'll see it late Thursday night, or I'll see it Thursday night. I'll record it late Thursday night and edit it Friday before I head out for the weekend. I haven't missed an episode yet, and I'm just waiting for the day it has to happen. But I think that's going to do it for today, guys. Thank you so much again for all the love and support. Go follow me on social media and all the links below. I would love to hear from you. Go show some love to my scene breakdown for Dune Part 1. Thank you again for listening and following and being great fans, and I will see you in the next one.